G'day guys, Simon Chapman and Stefan Bartholomaeus here at Sandown Motor Raceway with your preview for the Penrite Oil Sandown 500, brought to you by Ford. It takes you and a Ranger. Now, Stefan, the Sandown 500 feels a little bit disingenuous in some ways to be calling it that, because we've got two races here this weekend, 2 times 250 kilometres, 81 laps. What are you looking forward to most this weekend?
Well, just being here at Sandown's great. I mean, yes, it's a shame it's not the traditional Sandown 500, but this place has just so much heritage. We're always afraid that we're going to lose it because obviously the urban sprawl has sort of surrounded it. But yeah, great traditional venue and a good place to go motor racing.
Just good to be here, to be honest. The home of horsepower, an amazing racetrack, and yeah, like you say, it's one of those ones where you really just want to savour being here, don't you? Because it does feel like we're kind of on borrowed time every time we do come here. Obviously, it is the second to last round of the Supercars Championship here at Sandown. The final series is well underway. Let's chat about some of the news. It's Thursday. Big news straight off the bat. Maybe we chat about what came first, which was that awesome livery from Castrol. Thomas Randall this weekend is going to be running a Larry Perkins-inspired livery. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, obviously it's that sawtooth colour scheme that we saw through the 90s on a variety of Castrol cars, but as we've seen a couple of times in recent history with Supercars teams doing throwbacks to this Castrol livery, it's all about Larry Perkins and those 3 Bathursts that he won in those colours. So Tommy Randall even went out to the Perkins family farm in Cowangie this week as part of this collaboration, and yeah, just really again paying tribute to a legend.
Now, the big news, though, came a couple hours after that, which was obviously that Triple Eight have announced that Brock Feeney will be joined by Nick Percat in the 2026 Ryco Enduro Cup. Jamie Whincup stepping out of the number 88. Could be the number 1 next year, depending on how the final series goes. That's a big move. Perhaps expected by some. We saw James Courtney was teasing Nick Percat on the Drivers Only pod repeatedly earlier this week. Tell us a little bit about that. Obviously, we've sort of wondered when this change is going to come, but curiously it's come with the caveat from J-Dub that this isn't necessarily a retirement.
Yeah, so a little bit of intrigue around that element, that he wasn't ready to definitively say that this is it. I guess those on the outside, we like definitive storylines of this is definitely how it is, but he sort of left the door ajar to potentially driving again. But certainly, I think the main thing here is he's been true to his word. He always said that if there was someone else who came along as a co-driver who was a better option for the team than himself, he'd step back. And Nick Percat obviously coming straight out of full-time driving, like that is a pretty powerful team there they've got with Scott Pye alongside Will Brown, and now slotting Nick Percat into that 88 car with Brock Feeney. So yeah, some big news to start race weekend.
It's a big endorsement for Nick as well, isn't it? You know, after that announcement that he made, that he decided that he wasn't going to continue full-time with MSR next year, he spoke to us and said that he had a lot of interest from a lot of teams. He's obviously a Bathurst winner, very proven full-time. It must be pretty humbling to be approached by the top team in the pit lane.
Yeah, I guess this is the natural progression we see with drivers that drop out of full-time. You look for the best co-drive you can find, and sometimes it can be a little circumstantial in terms of what's available. But yeah, he's going to drop into pretty much the best seat in town and see if he can snag a second Bathurst win, because of course all those years ago at the Holden Racing team he won on debut with Garth Tander, so he'll be pretty keen to get another Peter Rock trophy.
It's obviously only been a couple of weeks since we were last racing on the streets of the Surfers Paradise, and I've got a laundry list as long as my arm in terms of some of the stories that have come out. You know, we had obviously Richie Stanaway split with Premier. We've got Jaden Ojeda who's going to jump into that car for Sandown and the Adelaide Grand Final. David Noble is going to step down as the CEO of Dick Johnson Racing, and obviously that team has also announced that Will Davison will not be competing with them next year. Ryland Gray is going to jump into, presumably he'll run the 17. That's a big one. You know, obviously there was a lot of chat all throughout this year about Davo and wanting to continue into next year. He had a contract for 2 seasons. Noble himself said that, you know, he was confident that Davo was going to go around again. I guess maybe paint the picture broader in terms of Davo and how this has come about.
Yeah, I mean, got to speak to Will last night at a Coates function, and certainly it was clearly a shock to him and a lot to process. So it's been 2 weeks now, and clearly an emotional 2 weeks, and he's had a lot of inbound inquiry over what he might do next year. The reality is that there's no full-time seats left. Aaron Cameron's locked in at that Blanchard Racing Team Mustang, which was the last one. So yeah, it's about, again, finding the best co-drive and seeing what else he can fit in around that.
And unfortunately, one of the best co-drives is gone now because Triple Eight have snapped up Nick Percat. We did wonder whether maybe Will could fit into the picture there. Obviously, he's got a relationship with J-Dub from a long way back. He'll be in demand, surely. There'll be a lot of teams that are keen to get him signed, but there are also a lot of teams who have already got their co-drivers locked away. Premier's obviously got Nash Morris and David Russell down pat. Jackson Evans has already been signed by Walkinshaw and Trinity United. Where do you think Will could maybe land?
Yeah, well, it's all been moving really fast, the co-driver market, but I think Will's probably got a fair idea of where he might go, but he's sort of just taking it one step at a time at the moment, and certainly this weekend is the 600 race milestone for him, so there's some emotion around that as well. And then, yeah, just sort of negotiating his way out of the DJR thing, because as you said, he was contracted there, so I think there's still a little bit more to play out behind the scenes before he's ready to sort of talk about what happens next.
So that brings us to Sandown for the second to last round of the 2025 Ripco Supercars Championship, and we've got 7 drivers fighting to get through to Adelaide. So the picture is really set up nicely here. We've got Brock Feeney on top of the points. He's just ahead of Chaz Mostert and Matt Payne, and the last driver in at the moment is Cameron Waters. And surprisingly, depending on which side of the fence you're on, Will Brown is on the outside looking in 5th, just ahead of Kai Allen and Thomas Randall. And we're actually looking at a media call right now where the finalists are currently chatting about what's going to happen this weekend. How's this going to shake out? Obviously, you know, guys like Brody Kostecki, Ryan Wood, who were super competitive throughout the season, got knocked out. How do you sort of see this weekend playing out? Sandown maybe doesn't quite have the same jeopardy as a Gold Coast, perhaps. You know, there's not the walls, but there are still some very close walls to the circuit towards turn 3 and 4. Yeah, how do you see this sort of playing out?
Yeah, I guess Gold Coast there shows that one slip and you can be done. So whether it's an incident or a bit of mechanical unreliability can be very, very costly. And yes, Chaz Mostert was the form driver on the Gold Coast. They were the form team, but Woody had that mechanical drama that you referenced. So they certainly can't afford to have any more of that stuff going on. I think we all know that you can either progress through based on the points or by winning a race. So that's going to be a key storyline of the weekend. You can lock yourself in just on Saturday. But really there's those 5 guys, which is Brock Feeney, Chaz Mostert, Matt Payne, Cam Waters and Will Brown. That you'd expect all of those guys to be in the Final 4, but they can't all be. So, yeah, the pressure's going to be on.
And Triple Eight have been the form team here, obviously, for the past decade, really. So if you're Will Brown, can you rest on your laurels a little bit, knowing that probably out the box that car's going to be quick, or is there a little bit of a hangover there from Surfers Paradise and perhaps even earlier in the year, knowing that your qualifying hasn't been great? Like, how does he sort of approach this weekend?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll give him some confidence that the cars have been good here in the past, but he really needs to execute in qualifying, which he's been unable to do in the recent past, certainly compared to his teammate Brock Feeney. So, yeah, you would think that the Triple Eight form would carry him through, but again, a big name has to drop out for him to get in.
There is also maybe the threat of some weather on Sunday, which could really throw a curveball into the mix. You know, they say that rain's the great equaliser. Maybe that's something that works for Waters, excuse the pun, but also for him. You know, in 2017, I think it was, he won here with Richie Stanaway in the Monster Energy FGX Falcon in wet conditions. You know, so maybe a wet Sandown is something that will work for him.
Yeah, well, we saw the Ford guys at Bathurst probably benefit from a bit of rain, and there's talk here at Sandown that the Camaros are going to be having a bit of an advantage with these big straights, but then the rain again changes that. So yeah, a lot of variables in the mix. And then I guess looking outside the finals bubble, there's also a new driver in the field in Jaden Ojeda at Premier Racing, replacing Richie Stanaway. So that's another little storyline to watch for this weekend.
All right. Well, that concludes our preview for the Penrite Oil Sandown 500. You can stay up to date with all the latest Supercars news at speedcafe.com and Mobile One live updates from Friday through to Sunday.